All right, Coach Brad Dixon, head football coach at Central High School, is here. We just did a whole podcast for 15 minutes, I think, but we might have gotten in trouble, but it's okay. Thanks for coming back. You're a legend around high school football.
I don't know about that.
Well, thanks for being here. I haven't talked to you in a while. So I haven't talked to you since you won a state title, I think, a couple years ago. I wanted to ask you personally, what was it? Because you've been there a couple times. What was it like to finally break through and win that state title for the school, for the community, for those kids? I really wanted to know what that was like, finally breaking through.
Yeah, I mean, we got there. I think I had coached, maybe like 16 years or so before we ever made one, and we had been to 2 semifinals. 2012 we had gotten beat. In 2014 we had gotten beat after having a lead. And so you're like, man, are we ever going to make one? Because you just never know. And then we get there in 2018 and just got housed by Forston. It was 30-0 in the first half. We were out of our league. Didn't have them coached up. They took advantage of things that we had been able to do defensively all year or for a long time. And we got a lot better as a result of that Forston game and some of our schemes and having some adjustments. And then, we had the COVID kind of situation hit, and then we got back there in 2022 against Lena, and we were much better prepared, and we played a much better game. They were better than us. We had a few things not go our way. I think it was 14-0 going into the fourth or something like that, and we were at least in the ball game, but we didn't score until the end when they subbed, and so then we got back in 2023. You really start to, if you go there and you get beat again, it's kind of like, man, what else do we need to change here or what's going on? But our kids were just, that whole year in 2023, they kind of had a chip because we had a lot of those same guys off of that 2022 team. And they showed, there was never a game where we played down to our competition or the moment was too big. If we were supposed to win by 40, we won. In the big games, we jumped out to big leads. We essentially, we almost put a running clock on in the quarterfinals. We did put a running clock on in the semifinals. And so we got to, but it was still tough. We get to play Lena. They're unbelievably well coached. The best, them in Rochester, I'd say the best public school programs in the state of Illinois in the last 10 years for sure. And, so we were able to score. I remember in the second quarter, and I told our guys then, I'm like, guys, that's the first meaningful touchdown in 3 state championship games that we've been a part of. That wasn't, because even in 2018 we scored at the very end too, and they essentially let us score. So and then just the way our defense played, I mean, it was by far the best. They hadn't been shut out. Lena hadn't been shut out. I mean, they're averaging almost 50 points. They had us outsized by I think like 60 pounds in every position, and so just the way that we did it. To have our, the crowd, the picture at the end, the whole stands on that side of ISU, and then just to be able to finally bring one back, because at our school, we've played in 3 state championships and it's all been football, and we've never won a state championship trophy. And so to bring that back for a group of kids, and we had one of our assistants, Andrew Griffin, his son was a senior on the team. So that was really cool that he got to experience that with his son. And, just to kind of solidify the things that we're doing, are giving our kids the best opportunity to succeed. It didn't change my life. It's not like I feel accomplished because we won. We did everything in our power to get back again this year, because I want our kids, for as much time as they're putting in throughout the off season, I want our kids to play 14 games. We've been able to play, I think, 51 games over the last 3 years, which if you don't make the playoffs, it's 27, right? Maybe it's not 51. That was maybe 4 years. We've played 14, 28, and 13. So 41 games, I should say.
Right.
Which is a lot. When you could play 27, we've been able to play that many more games and give our kids that much more opportunity. And it just makes the commitment to football, which is a great commitment, obviously, year round to training and in summer and stuff like that. So for us, that's our goal every year. Obviously the trophy is nice, but it didn't, like I said, it didn't change my life. You know, we just got back to work, and we're going to try to get back to work again to get back there in 2025.
Yeah, because I think the first time I had you on, I think you were getting there, and I was asking like, when you go to like U of I think they were at U of I at the time. It's like now you got to change your game planning a little bit, or like how you do practice. Then you get there, and then it's the environment. Since you've been there a couple of times, did you feel more comfortable going into that? Like, because I asked, at Moral Foresight, Josh Joseph, he's like, I've been there so many times now, I know the ins and outs of Memorial Stadium. I know the ins and outs of this. Did that help at all? Like feeling more comfortable as a staff going into that?
We actually, because we hadn't been successful at Illinois, and we hadn't played that well early, when we were going to ISU, we really changed everything in terms of how we went. So we used to practice at home on the Thursday of Thanksgiving, then let our kids go home and eat, and then hop on the bus in the afternoon, and then drive over, have a meeting, and then essentially go to bed after supper. And just felt like maybe that made our guys lethargic to practice early in the morning and then do all the Thanksgiving stuff. And so it was kind of like mindset of if this is our goal and this is our plan every year, then our community is just going to have to realize that Thanksgiving is just going to have to be postponed. And so what we did in 2023 is DMAC was gracious enough, and it was on the way to allow us to practice there. So we had the 2-hour bus ride. We got off and had our Thursday, pregame practice on the turf. We got to kick on the turf. We had a unfamiliar environment. We were in our normal kind of mid-afternoon practice time slot. We weren't just in a bus for 4 hours and then get off and do nothing. And so I felt like that was huge. And then when we got there and ate, and so we changed all that stuff up. Just how we went about the week. And so we really liked our plan this year. And because obviously we were looking for answers after the first couple, that seemed to work pretty well. And it was another fun experience for our kids to go somewhere else and practice and some of that kind of stuff. And they just pushed Thanksgivings back to Saturday, and hopefully that's kind of our plan moving forward.
Did you find that it was big to go to turf? Because I don't know, do you guys play on turf during the regular season, or all schools are on grass for the most part?
Yeah, all schools are on grass. We used to play one game at Illinois College against Jacksonville Route. So we actually this year as well, when we went down to Althoff, we went to QND. Coach Cornell was gracious enough to let us practice there. And then we actually stopped at Roxana on the way down, which Roxana has a beautiful facility.
Yes.
On the way down to Belleville. We were able to get on the turf. But we don't play anybody in the regular season. Mainly for our kicking game, we do a lot of onside kicks and different stuff. And so I don't think it's huge in terms of we're obviously running the double wing, and we're throwing wing T. We're throwing the ball 3 to 10 times a game total. And in that, so I don't think it's that big in terms of but to get on there and let our kickers kick and that kind of stuff is beneficial. And for some reason, I feel like it always feels bigger on the turf, I don't know, than grass, just the whole the way it's all set up and stuff. And so just to kind of see that and be on it, I think is good. But we like our grass, obviously. And, for 1A small school football, we still have a few fields, Brown County, where there's not a track around it. And so everyone's super close, and you got Harleys in one end zone and trucks with people in the other end zone. And I still think that's a phenomenal 1A atmosphere when you can get all those people. And we played Greenfield in the semifinals 2 years ago on our way to state. It was the biggest gate in 1A and 2A because they were in the south of the WIVC. We're in the north. We didn't play each other regular season. We essentially had a WIVC championship in the semifinals, and it was 4 and 5 deep around the field. And it was absolutely an awesome atmosphere with people standing around the field and not in some big stadium.
Yeah. I do miss that because I went to Oakwood High School. It's a 3A school, 2A school. I do miss that. Being up here is awesome. Like I have the facilities and stuff, but there is our first round playoff game, we went to Moline, drove all the way out to Moline. For us, that's 2.5 hour, 2 hour drive. And it was grass. So we knew it was going to be grass. we have 2 turf fields. So we do have a grass field. So we had to make them practice on grass. And our kids are like, why are we on grass? Well, they're grass. So you get there and the stadium's awesome. It's on grass. And the kids are looking at it going, what the hell is this? And we're like, guys, so all of us old heads are like, this is grass. This is how football's supposed to be played. Like the turf is nice, but still, sometimes you got to play on grass. And our kids just didn't adapt well to the grass. And they were complaining, like, this is home field advantage, guys. They got the home field. Like, sorry, like, we have to adapt this. But it's just crazy how the kids mentally are like, oh, my God.
Yeah, I think that was a big advantage for us when we played Belleville Altoff and 2 years ago in the quarterfinals when they had to come to our place was grass because they had played it once against Centralia like in week 2. But I think going from grass to turf is not as big of a difference as if you went from turf to grass because, you get weather in late November, obviously. And this year we didn't. There were a lot more teams that were spread teams in the state game this year, I felt like, because the weather never really turned. But, yeah, you get on grass. I mean, we had a week 2 game this year in the playoffs where it rained a lot on grass. And we played on turf in 2018 in the semifinals in the snow. And we played at Argenta Orienta, and it was great conditions. Just down the road at St. T was Moreau and St. T in a muddy, snowy mess. And it's just a big difference going to grass if you played on turf for sure. So I think, like you said, I think the advantage goes to the grass if you've been used to playing on it. But obviously in terms of practice and keeping guys healthy, I think the turf in terms of that, because our practice field gets very, very rough by the end of the year. In the grass for sure.
Well, then Mulwane's a wing tee style team, and we're a spread team. So when we go down there and these big boys are running at us, and I'm like, guys, this is country boy football because I'm the only guy on staff like from the country, like growing up in the country. Now I'm up in the suburbs. I'm like, guys, this is real football. I said, I'm a spread guy. I love the spread stuff, but I want to run the football to spread. But these guys were like under center, bam, bam, bam. And I'm like, ooh. Our kids were like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, this is country boy stuff.
Yeah, I got to see them on a Friday night game against Quincy High in the playoffs. We played Saturday, and so I watched that game. And, yeah, they did a really good job of running trap in that game for sure, which obviously anytime I can watch a much bigger school run the wing tee, it's fun because obviously we've been running that down here since 2008.
Now, why did you guys decide that? I don't know if I asked you that. Like, why the wing tee?
Yeah, so I came here in 2007. Our principal at the time was Bill Reed. Bill Reed was a coach at Carthage through those years with Jim Unruh. His son was a quarterback on at least one of the, I think, state championship teams or maybe a couple runners up. And so Bill had that wing tee Carthage background, but he was the principal. Well, after that first year in 2007, our head coach got let go. And I had applied for it, but I was only 23 at the time. Now I'd been coaching. I played 1 year at Knox College, and then I got into coaching at 19. So I think I was 23 or 4 at the time, but I'd been coaching for 5 years. We had went through 6 head coaches, I think, in 10 years. Wow. And so they brought me in and said, listen, we like what you're doing. We like you as a teacher. Football's been a mess. We don't want to lose you as a teacher. We're going to let Bill take it over with the understanding that in 2 to 3 years, he's going to hand it over to you. And so that was kind of the agreement we worked out. And so he brought the Carthage wing tee stuff into the program. But we also then his son, who had played at IC after that. And so we kind of did wing tee and spread for a bit. We made the playoffs in 2008, 5-5, and got actually destroyed by Illini. Of course, they were Illini West then. And then we went 5-5 after I came in. They were 1-8 in 2006. We were 3-6 in 2007, my first year. 5-5 in 2008, which was the start of our 16 years we made the playoffs. Went 7-2 in the regular season in 2009. Lost a 57-40 game against Monticello, which was embarrassing defensively. I was calling the defense. And then we finally got our first playoff win against North Mac in 2010. And got beat in the second round by Illini West again. And then I took over as head coach in 2011. Bill Reed then was my offensive coordinator for 1 season. And then he took a principal's job down at Athens and started coaching down there with those guys in 2012. And it was in 2012 where we kind of ditched really a lot in 2011. we felt like we were just kind of a mile wide and an inch deep. And so we ditched all that spread stuff Joe had left, and we went all in on the wing tee, really from like 2011 on. And that's where we've been. Obviously, it morphs into different things, different parts of it. Like this year, when we moved our all-state fullback 6'2", 220 to quarterback, we had a lot more quarterback run game than we'd had in the past, quarterback, fullback. Other years, we've been super fast. We've been a lot more jet. Some years it's more buck, some years more double dive. Last 2 years, we threw the ball a lot more. We actually played with a split out more the last couple of years than we ever did, because last year we had a 6'4", guy that could catch. And so we're wing T, but we're a different version of it in terms of what we emphasize each year. But for us at our level, where we have 220 kids in our high school, we've been getting 50. Like this year we had 57 kids out. We're not always going to have that dude at quarterback. We're not always going to have those receivers, but we're generally going to have some pretty hard-nosed kids that want to play hard. And we feel like last year we had to replace 17 of the 22 starting positions from our state championship team. And we started 2 freshmen. We feel like we're much better able to reload in the wing T and get guys in spots. We moved a right guard to fullback and stuff like that than we could if we were in the spread,
Right. Because it's weird where I'm curious, because where I'm at, our school is 1,900. But on our varsity team, we roll in with like 35, 40 kids. So we look like a smaller school because we're 7A. So we look smaller, but we're like a spread kind of run-ish team. But I'm always curious because I have to try to relate it to small town football because of the numbers, right? Like I think in our whole program, we had 80 some if you took freshman through senior, which is a lot. But our varsity team is literally 35, 40 kids, and some of those are sophomores. Like we bring up sophomores. And I'm always curious because my biggest lineman, I had a big lineman. I had a 290-pound kid, but the rest of them were like 200, 205, 210, and we're rolling up against other 7A schools and stuff like that. And so we are actually in my job is to research a different offense to fit into what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And I haven't fully gone to wing T stuff, but I'm looking at like pistol stuff. And I'm always curious because you hear everybody say, well, wing T adapts to everybody, but then you hear how air raid adapts to everybody. So I just get confused. I'm like, well, wait a minute. You say, I think it's just a system fits every kid, right?
Right. And we've had multiple people reach out this offseason. I don't call the offense. When Bill Reed left in 2011, Casey Ray, who quarterbacked our only other playoff team in 2003 in the school's history because we were really bad at football, he came on staff in 2008 as an assistant at the JV level. He took over as OC then full time in 2012. And so he's been running our offense. He's like a co-head coach. He's our calculus teacher, super smart. So we've had multiple staffs reach out this offseason and from around the country wanting to, switch to the wing T, and which is great. But I always tell people, same thing. We run a multiple odd front, like a 3, it started as a 3-3 or a 3-5. Mm-hmm. But the way we do it here is like 16 years of going into a game with a game plan, someone exposing a part of our offense and defense, and us having to make corrections and then have answers for various things. Like we have this whole, brain now full of answers versus stuff, like this H-back, 300-pound lineman, counter H, counter F that Althoff was able to really successfully run against us in the semis. I haven't went back to the film yet. We've had a lot of answers for counter out of spread for a long time. We're going to have to dive in to see, what were some things that we should have been able to do. And so it's hard to, I always say, people, you can't copy what we do here because this is 16 years of 18 years, whatever. I think I've been here 18 of experiences of someone beating us or making it very tough and us having to have answers for that. And so when someone comes out in a tight front or a 6-3, or, they cover up all linemen, they go gap 8 or whatever, they blitz our motion or who knows what, we've got things in place that we've done in the past to counteract that. And I think that's also helped us to adapt. Not only are we adapting to our strengths personnel wise, but then we're also figuring out, like this year, we had lost so many linemen and we had a lot of new guys that we tried to find double teams everywhere. So we ran schemes where we could double at the point of attack because our guys weren't great one-on-one, Other years we've been great one-on-one. So like double dive is a great play if your tackle can block one-on-one because you're faking fullback. If your tackle can't block one-on-one very well, double dive's not a great play because that D tackle is standing them up in the C gap that you're trying to run. Or, how do you handle a 225-pound guy playing head up on your tight end and C gaps where you want to run and he's two gapping and your tight end, so you got to have some answers to all of that stuff. And I'm not saying we have all the answers, but I'm saying through experience, we've kind of created a system, as you say. So our wing T system and how we call things and maybe how we name things, isn't the Tubby Raymond book of wing T.
Right.
It's the Camp Point Central, bastardized version of what we learned from Carthage and what we've learned over 16 to 18 years. And that's kind of who we are. But then again, like every year, we've only really ran jet for the last 5 or 6 years, and that type. So, different formations and motions and that type of stuff is just all things that we've really been forced to do to adapt or to continue to improve or to put our guys in better situations, both offensively and defensively. And that's why it's hard to just say, hey, here's the Camp Point system, go put it in. It's got to be yours and what and we tried to dabble in some spread stuff, and we talked to Derek Leonard and how we could maybe go twins this way and run sweep this way. It's like, man, we just don't coach that stuff very well. Like, I don't know how to coach a wide receiver. So you got to be able to coach it too. It's got to be what and that's why we've been able to I guess reload pretty well as we've had those answers and we've been able to kind of reload it through experience.
Well, I think with a system though, for like what we're going through, I love inside zone. I love this. This year, we struggled at that stuff. So now we're dabbling into, look at the kids we have coming back. Can we adapt it and go more gap scheme? Can we adapt it to go double team gap scheme? And that's my job right now as like the O-line run game guy. Like, hey, this is who we have. Can it still fit into who we want to be? And I think that's why I respect wing T stuff, because like you said, if you can do this year, awesome. Next year, you don't have those same kids, or like maybe you have those same kids coming back, but they struggled at this stuff. Why do we continue to hit our head against the wall and just adapt it? But then we also have to be careful and not installing everything, because then their heads start spinning. Correct. Right? So you got to make sure whatever you have in, can you just adapt one thing? Like, hey, instead of blocking out, you got to block down on this play. And that's easy in a game. Like, hey, when we call whatever, you're doing this. Okay, cool. That's our adaptive thing of doing it.
Yeah, we've got about 4 basic probably run blocking schemes, whether we call area, which is just our, it's our rule. We block, our gap first, we block on, or we go to backer. So we got a lot of those plays. Then like we've got our trap sweep stuff. Then we got our jet stuff. And then we've got like counter and our wham play that are blocked pretty similar on the front side and a few things differently on the back side, and then like this year, because we moved in week 3, we moved our stud fullback to quarterback. I mean, we ran for 1,000 yards out of the quarterback spot. Some simple tags were quarterback counter, right? Same thing for our offensive linemen. A lot of follow plays, where instead of giving it to the fullback, we're actually going to follow him. Our fullback was also 6 foot 220. So we just tagged a few other things to that. We stayed under center. Now, our coach, and a lot of people are like, man, he really can't get ahead of steam. And why don't you get in the gun? And it's like, okay, well, now we got to have a gun snap, it's a whole different thing. If you're an under center team, you got to get really good at a gun snap. And now, okay, when they load the box and you're in gun, can you throw it? What's your pass game out of that? You take away a lot of the play action. Yes, it's great to read, but like when you start adding all that stuff in, there's so much cost to it that you just water down everything else. So we stayed pretty strong, and we had a few like kind of wildcat little things, but we didn't run them much. we had a few things, but we stayed true to our under center and we got the quarterback the ball. Same thing. Veer would have been really good in midline. And we dabbled in a little bit of veer, but you really can't dabble. If wing T and triple option are different. And
yes,
you can't just say, well, we're going to be wing T, but we're also going to run some triple. Well, you got to get like Calhoun in our league, who we've played in the playoffs to make it the last couple of years, really stinking good at the triple option. I mean, their quarterback this year was brand new varsity, like a senior, because they graduated a guy that started for 3 years. We thought, man, okay, that's going to be their weak point. Gosh, that guy made every read correctly. We bluffed him. We tried everything. And if we got too far upfield, he gave it. If we crashed down, he kept it. If the corner came off the pitch man, he pitched it. And it's like, that's 8 years of, or whatever, from JFL, that kid running midline and triple and veer. And he was really good. And if there was a quarterback, and our guy's super smart this year and he was able to read the veer okay, but it still was it's just not, you can't just throw it in. And I think that's where teams, some people struggle. When you're struggling as a program, you want to, because like all that RPO stuff, man, that stuff's great. We're going to run counter this way and run bubble that way, or we're going to send the tackle up and then the quarterback can keep it. We're going to pull guard and H-back that way. But then it's all good, really good stuff. And if you watch Saturday football or you turn on the state games and you're like, man, and you start writing all this stuff down, it's like, this is really good. And you draw this up. And next thing you know, you've got all of this stuff and like, okay, how do I organize it? What's our identity going to be? Are we changing every year? And, this year we ran a lot of this stuff and we were mostly like air raid, but now we're going to go wing T this year. And we see a lot of programs that do that stuff. And I feel like I said, they just don't have the answers when someone stops what worked the game before. And I think that's what you've got to have, a system that you can, like you said, can have those little tweaks and things within your scheme, but up front and with how you call stuff, right, with how you're naming plays and stuff, it all kind of fits together. And when we first started, like I said, in 2008 or 9, we had a spread package and a wing T package, and they were separate. Like the names of the plays were in it. We were just average at both, and that's why we couldn't win the big games.
Yeah, that's what's happened to us since we got here. Was I was the jerk that came in and said, like, I want to run this, but I'm not the OC. But then they're trying to like, well, if Steve knows this stuff, we should put it in. And then, well, we like this. And so when we were going 0-9, 2-7, we were like, okay, we have too much in. We don't have this. Let's scale it back. And then all of a sudden, now we have a quarterback that can move this year, and we're doing this. So now we're coming into this offseason going, do we have to go to like a spread option? Do we have to do this? Because he can move, he can run. He was the conference offensive player of the year and missed 2 games, mind you, missed 2 games and still got it. So now we're trying to dabble in this, but now we're having conversations of, okay, but like whatever we decide to do, we have to keep it from here on out to like fit what we have coming up. So like,
right.
And if we decide to do option, and the kid's not playing baseball, maybe he should come in right now and start working on that stuff, because it's going to take a while for him to be comfortable in reading this and doing this. And then we can't change his read all of a sudden. We have to make sure is it always D gap? Is it always C gap? And then does he know when you had a tight end, does it move a gap? Like it's a lot. And
then can you handle, if he gets hurt, can you still, do you have a program that if your dude goes down, obviously you're not going to be as good, right? But do you have to change everything because one guy? And I feel like there's a lot of programs, especially at the small school, maybe that are running the spread, but if their quarterback goes down, like everything's gone, right? Whereas like a Rochester, I mean, they withstood a million injuries this year. And still had a shot. They were playing good ball at the end of the year. They lost their stud quarterback. They lost their next quarterback. They're building quarterbacks from the ground up, and so you've got to have a system that when that best player gets hurt, whether that's your stud eye tailback or the quarterback in your spread system, does everything go to hell? Or I understand when you replace the guy, you're not going to be as good, but can you replace a guy and still run your offense the way that it is designed? Maybe not as efficiently, and maybe not the playbook pairs down, but I feel like if everything is set up on one guy, football's that sport where you just never know from game to game what's going to happen. And again, we feel like, and that's another reason why we run, we give the ball for multiple reasons, but we're trying to run 6 to 8 running backs a game in our wing T stuff. A, to keep them fresh and healthy, but B, if they do get injured, then we've got other guys that have experience. It's not just the 2,000 yard eye back. And then hopefully, right, that within that group of 6 to 8 is some underclassmen. So when 2 guys graduate or 3 guys graduate out of the backfield, we're not starting over with guys that don't have any varsity experience. And we've been pretty successful. This year we had a couple high ankle like contact things where guys fell on it that cost our guys some games. But we've been pretty fortunate in staying healthy. We got guys that are still rushing for maybe 1,000 yards by the end of the year. But our perfect scenario is that we rush for like 400 yards, and we've got 8 guys that carried the ball around 50 yards and around 6 carries a game. And we feel like if we do that, then we're going to have them all in the playoffs. And then if a dude needs to go get 25 carries, like our fullback did in 2023, I think in the regular season, he had 50 carries for like a little less than 400 yards. And then in the playoffs, he had 100 carries for like almost 700 yards. When it mattered, we were giving him the ball in the second round in 2023, had 25 carries for 225 yards and 4 touchdowns. Right. But the most he'd carried it in the regular season, I think, was 10 in one game, And right. So he felt fresh. And in the state game, then we rode him too, and he looked fast and fresh. And that's just part of that philosophy we have with trying to play as many guys as we can, even at the 1A level.
I probably know the answer to this because you've had success. Has there ever been pushback for your guys' offense? Because you know how it is. Everybody wants to see what on Saturdays. They want to see that. Was there ever pushback, or since you're a small school, you have success, there is no pushback of you need to go spread? No, we're going to stay to what we do.
I don't know about going spread, but yeah, you always hear like, why do they keep running it up the middle? Because they think every run play is the same, even though we're there's different things going on, But yeah, we've been in situations now. Fortunately, we've been able to move the ball pretty well, even in like I said, defense. I'm calling the defense, and if we would have stopped Althoff at all, we would have had a better shot, obviously. But we've been pretty successful on offense. But yeah, I mean, I think we've heard it over the years about throwing the ball a little bit more and things like that. And it's when we have the guys, we do. But this year, by the end of the year, we were throwing the ball pretty effectively. I think we threw for 150, 160 on Althoff. We had a quarterback that threw for almost 1,000 in our state championship year. We had a wingback that caught 400 and some yards worth of, catches this past year. So we're going to take what the defense gives us, and if they're not going to load the box and we've got a 220-pound quarterback and a 220-pound fullback and 285-pound wingbacks at our level, we feel like if we can get 3 to 4, we're going to set ourselves up pretty good, no matter who we have up front and no matter what they have. But obviously, yeah, if they're going to go too deep, we're going to try to take advantage of it. And, we get a lot of teams that run a 6-3 or a 5-4 or whatever, and they've got 2 safeties for the entire field, and we'll take advantage of that stuff. But essentially to get them into a 3 safety look so that we can run the ball, and if they don't, then that's their fault. But yeah, I think everyone has it. But yeah, when you're winning, I think it's the same. People ask about our practice philosophy and the pushback and all that kind of stuff. And we only wear pads once a week. But what we have to understand, there's a lot of ways to win. We were 44-5 in my first 4 years doing it the grinder way. So we built the credibility by doing it the old way. So I get it when people are making the change, because it's super easy to do what everybody else is doing if you're losing, because you can say, hey, we're this is what Lombard Montini's running, or this is what Nazareth Academy is running this or whatever, and they're winning state championships. That there's comfort in that. But yeah, when you're running the wing T, or you're in a sprint-based system where you're only wearing pads once a week, and you're not taking the field on Monday, and you're not meeting on the weekends and that kind of stuff, and you're not winning, there's that pushback that people are like, well, you're not doing enough, because I think everyone's with all of the youth stuff and travel sports, it's like we've got to do more, and that's not my philosophy, and I feel like that sets people up for failure. But it's not comfortable to be the one out there on the ledge doing it different than everybody else.
Well, I was going to get to that because this was the first year where the head coach is like, okay, let's do this. Let's start dipping our toe into this feed the cat sprint based football. So I got certified in like the RPR stuff. We started doing it in the spring. I would bring kids in the morning before school. We do RPR, trying to show them what it is. We're doing the work, like the sprint based stuff. Like I have it down to like, we're going to do this for 10 seconds, you get 45 seconds rest. Then we do our next thing. I want to time you. I want to do this. And slowly getting to it. The head coach was all bought in. So we were dabbling it a little bit. You should have seen the kids' faces when we did RPR. They were like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And then it got embarrassing because then the track team would be in there working out or the baseball team, and we're over there doing this. So you could see they're like, let's turn our backs to them so they don't see what we're doing. But then what started to happen is kids would come up, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just waking up the body the way it's never been woken up before. We're going to move around. We're going to do this. We're going to have a nice 20-minute workout. If that, then we're done. Like there's no need to go more than that. We're done. And it started to really talk. So then in the summer, I went to all the head coaches. I'm like, hey, can I come like work with your guys' team for like 20 minutes? We start doing it. And I kept asking kids, how do we feel? And they're like, well, we feel pretty good. So it's starting to like catch a little bit of fire. And you should see the look on other teams' faces. We had like an hour and a half bus ride. We got there. I'm like, all right, RPR, go. Let's go to the end zone, circle up. Let's do RPR. People in the stands are looking like, what are they doing? And then we do our little workout, or not workout, but we do our movement. People are like, what are they doing? They don't have pads on while they're like doing their thing and stuff like that. And it's awesome. Our head coach starts laughing. He goes, I want to be different. I don't care what they think. Let's do something to get them talking. It was awesome.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to see in the pregame is the other team in a static stretching lines
or out
of halftime. It was when we played Lena that first year, and they come out in the pregame in their big circle and they're doing RPR, and it's like, all right, these guys know what the hell they're doing. And then, but I will say this: I had an assistant coach, and I love Coach Aaron. Don't get me wrong, and Lena, they do a phenomenal job. And we have a ton of respect for them, but our assistant, because we also do the neuro spike balls and stuff. So when we played them there in 2023, I'm like, crap, we didn't get the ball because they were in the indoor doing their RPR and because it's all player led. Once we set the example, and now our seniors, like next year's juniors, understand. And at day one of summer, right? I mean, of course they've been doing it on PE, but I'll set the tone with the freshmen. And I'll go through it again with them and usually show some but so he takes the spike balls and he's like, it was pretty awesome. He said their coaches were leading them through RPR. He said our leaders were leading our guys through RPR. I just thought that was a cool thing because RPR is one of the only modalities out there, if not the only one that is not like practitioner based. Right. The kids can take control of their own wake up, and we arrive and our kids do a freestyle warm up, just like you would see in track where their headphones are in and they do their own thing within parameters of things we want them to get done. But we're, those teams that go out 45 minutes, an hour before time, and they do this rigid warm up where the kids are in this heightened CNS state, high anxiety, and they're like essentially wearing themselves out in the pregame. Is crazy, and it's something we all used to do and a lot of teams still do. So we let our guys get a lot of that kind of stuff out before there's really anybody in the stadium. And just like when the best of the world in the NFL, when you're watching NFL today or whatever, and 2 hours before the game they're out there going through their movement stuff. I mean, that's what our guys do. And then we go inside away from all of the hoopla and all that kind of stuff. And that's where we do our RPR and we do our movement stuff. And so we don't actually take the field for a short kind of position specific wake up and then to run some plays until there's about 18 minutes to go on the game clock. And I've had some officials and different people that say like, no, we need to meet with your captains at 6:30. And like, no, we're not even going to be out there until after 6:40. Well, that,
Right.
we want to get this coin toss done. I'm like, well, that's just not how we're going to do it. The coin toss can be done at any point in time.
Yeah.
But we try to keep our guys in there. And I always say, like, if we have this much energy, this circle of energy for the game, and you take that away in the warm-up, this is what they have left, And so it's like,
Right.
well, we got to condition more to win the fourth quarter. Well, maybe your warm-up, and that's what GPS, like, so we use GPS for the first time this year. And one of the things we found out in terms of like some of our high-speed accelerations and some of our higher player load was even in a few like high-speed catches in the pregame. Like, and we have a very short pregame. Our wingbacks are running wheel routes, a couple of them in the pregame. That might be like a tenth of their player load in the game already, So you really have to look at, what do I really need to get myself ready? In all reality, I want to save as much of that energy as I can. But I think coaches want to have this very like elaborate, look cool. We want to do the jumping jacks with our team name, and we want to be in militaristic lines, and we want to look disciplined and all that kind of stuff. And I just think, I'm sure teams see us mosey out on the field with 18 minutes to go, and it probably looks like these guys don't give a crap. Where the hell are they? And the reality is, we've done our work ahead of time. We've been inside, belly breathing, going through RPR, getting our mind right, doing some other neuro things, trying to conserve the energy we need to be able to play in the game. And we're trying to give our kids the best chance to be successful, and say, all that stuff in the warm-up is more for show than anything. I mean, gosh, I look at like a track and some of that stuff, right? Some of the best guys do very minimal to get their body ready to go. And they understand, like, look at what your best players, like, they're not dumb. They know what their body needs now. Now, to most people, it's like, man, that guy's freaking lazy. Well, does he turn it on when it's time to turn it on? Maybe you can learn something from that guy. He knows that if I go super hard for this, all this time, or the guy that doesn't sprint the gasser, like, he's conserving the energy because he knows what his body needs. And I think you can learn a lot from those elite athletes that people call lazy, but in reality, they kind of know what's BS and what's not, and what their body needs to be successful. And so we're just trying to do the minimum effective dose to get our guys ready to go.
Well, I'm glad you said some of that, because that was our first year. So when it's your first year doing this, and I'm the guy that got certified, and now I'm trying to get all the other coaches to kind of understand what we're doing. Practice was one thing, and there was times I turn around and I'm like, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And I'm getting mad at the head, like, I'm yelling at the head coach. I'm like, look at the freshmen. They're doing up downs. Like, why are we doing that? Like, that's not what we need to do. Why are they running a lap around the field? Why are they doing that? Then I'm looking at drills, and I'm like, hey, it's not a speed day. Why are these guys doing this, like doing something where they're getting full speed? We can't be doing that. And I'm trying to like get everybody on board. And then like the pregame, the head coach is like, what should we do pregame? And I'm like, nothing. And he goes, what do you mean nothing? And I'm like, we need to do RPR, go outside without their pads on. They can throw a football around, make sure they're not doing whatever, just kind of relax. But then we were still doing like wide receivers running these routes and running, and we're throwing a lot of footballs, and we're doing this and we're doing this. And I just kind of ignored it, because I'm like, well, it's our first year. I can't be a jerk and do this. What I can control is like my O-line. So the O-line, we used to go down and like, okay, we're going to hit, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. My O-line group, they'd come down and like, hey, we're just going to step through our steps real quick. We're not going full speed. We're just stepping through, talking. We're doing this. Then we talk, and I'm like, O-line, go sit down and drink water. And there's still like 10 to 15 minutes, like 10 minutes left. I'm like, just go sit down. Just go relax. And I'm standing there watching everybody else do their thing. And I guarantee people in the stands are like, what are they doing? They're just sitting. And I'm like, the O-line needs to sit more than anybody, because they're going to have to push people around. They're going to have to do this. And so me and the head coach have been meeting, and he's like, what do we need to change? We need to do this. So I'm glad to hear that my mindset's going to the right spot of like, yeah, they can go kick a football and stuff, but I don't want them moving around. It's just relax. Like, hey, punters, just get the movement for a couple times. And we don't need to one-on-one linebacker stuff going and like tackling before the game. Like, you're right. That's kind of like for show, like we're showing. Like, I don't care if it's 6 minutes left before the game starts and we're out there ready to go. I don't care.
Yeah, and it's honestly, I'll sit back because we're setting all of our tech stuff up on our end zone camera and all that. And it's actually kind of neat to see, the expectation is there of the guys getting themselves ready. Obviously, I've got to hammer home. We don't let our JV, because we dress everybody, because for us, a freshman, like in our league, we're going to play home and away our division games every other year. So like a kid, we may play like at Brown County, our closest rival, that kid's freshman year, and then we won't play there again until his junior year. Well, that might be the first time he's ever in that locker room. Like, I want the comfortability of how we, where they're at and stuff. So we dress everybody, but it's like, you guys, listen, we're not playing one-on-one. We're not having a 2-on-2. You guys are helping us set stuff up, and then you're going back to the locker room unless you are going to play meaningfully. But then to watch like our D-line get together, do some takeoffs, do some hand fighting stuff, go through their reads, like pull reads, like if we get a down block and a pull outside, we spin out of it. Like, they'll be working on that stuff. If we put in like every once in a while, depending on our D line and how good they are, we may have like a zone blitz scheme where we're going to drop them. Like, and if you just kind of sit back and watch what kids do, like, they have the freedom as a group or individuals to do what they think puts them in the best position, Now, do I still have to say to, some of the guys, like, you could have some varsity guys, I'm like, dude, guys, you guys don't need to be throwing. You're not going to throw. Like, there's still that, I'm not saying that our guys go out there and but they understand, but it's neat to see. And it gives the kids some autonomy and some authority over how they're going to get them. And you get rid of that nervous energy, some of that anxiety. They get, they have their headphones in. They're getting themselves in a position for performance without the rigid, setup. Like I said, we used to do the same thing. Our linemen would go down, get on all fours, and hit shoulders. And it's like, what in the hell is this for? Like, why are we warming our shoulders up? Like, what? I look back at it now, and we did it for years, right? I'm like, what is that doing in all reality?
Right.
It's just, it's crazy. And one of the hardest things for me to give up was the stretching lines, because I love to go and talk to every player before the game. I used to go down every line. Hey, man, high five, tap on the helmet. Let's go, man. Remember that? You're ready. You've had a great week. Like, I love doing that. But now I just do it inside or in the gym or whatever, or I stay away from them, and just try to let them have their space. I think football coaches try to control every aspect of it. But in the game, right, they got to make their own decisions and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I feel like I'm thinking back to, games that we've won and lost, and we've won more games in the fourth quarter than we've lost in the fourth quarter, in terms of winning the fourth. And what I want to do is win the first half by 40 and get our guys out and get our other guys in so they can get more experience and we can stay healthy. And so, if we can win the first half by enough, we won't have to worry about the fourth quarter. Yeah.
One thing I changed, like I said, this year I might control a little bit more, but like this year with like getting the coaches understanding what I'm trying to do, and the head coach kind of wants to do. And even our head coach was like, I can't give up. Like, we're going to go out and do something on Mondays because I feel like we have to work on this because we're not good at this. Like, there's still bumps in the road of that first year. But with the O-line, I used to like do all that stuff, and I bring them in and I'm yelling, hooping, hollering, getting them ready. What I did was we just kind of walked through some things. I bring them in. I would say something to them, but it wasn't like me yelling. It was coming in. I'm like, hey, guys, take a deep breath. We're all good. We got plenty of time. Hey, this is our home field. Make sure we're locked in. When you're sitting over there, you're getting ready. Just trying to help them, like, just think about this stuff. Think about this. And then whatever, and then just kind of let them go. They're standing on the sideline getting water. We're watching the quarterbacks and the wide receivers are running vertical routes, and that's why I'm standing over there getting mad. Like, why would we do and I just get mad. I'm like, okay, I hope we're not tired. But the whole line is like, and then everybody starts to come over and they're like, what are you guys doing? Like, man, we're just kind of standing here. And I'm like, it's uncomfortable for the kids at first, but then after a while, they're like, okay, now they got the routine. Even ending practice early. Like, we used to go to 6:30. Now we're getting done at 5:30. We're going out there at 3:30. We're getting done at 5:30. What starts to happen, though, is the kids are like, what time is it? Oh, it's 4:30. Oh, can we be done? Now they're wanting to get done even earlier. And sometimes I get mad, like, let's go old school. We'll go to 6:37. They're like, no, we're good. And then they start doing their thing.
Yeah, sometimes, we haven't had to in quite a few years, but there was a time 4 or 5 years ago where they were kind of screwing around in our how we we do RPR and stuff before practice and a few movement things, and they weren't taking it serious. And I said, well, we can go back to what we used to do. We can set up the county fair stations and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yes.
And every once in a while, you do have to remind them that there are other ways to do things. And if we're just going to waste time doing RPR and whatever, we can waste time doing other stuff, in the same fashion. So, but yeah, getting back to your point of same thing with the, how we practice and all that. You can't copy what we do here. We, like you said, we had the credibility. Our staff's been around together for 16 years. We've got outside the box kind of thinkers anyway. You've got to figure out, like you're saying, there are weeks where we'll go out on Monday, like no pads, no cleats, no nothing. Just step like after film, and we may want to walk through one or two things for like 15 minutes. Literally like walk. We didn't even have a ball.
Right.
But if that's your thing, then do that on Monday. Like if you're, I know at Stewartville, because they don't have athletic PE with Coach Mueller, they do their sprint day right after school, their 40s or fly 10s, and then they go watch film because they feel like that. I mean, that's awesome. Like, you've got to make it your own, and how you want to do it. Some people go just uppers every day, or whatever. Some people may not wear pads at all. When we got in the playoffs for like the last couple of weeks, we didn't wear pads on Wednesday. We went helmets too, because from a physical standpoint, our guys were locked in. We didn't need to beat them up. We needed to make sure we were good scheme wise and what our assignments were and that type of stuff for the game plan. And so we backed off even more, but our JV guys, we felt like we're missing that component. So we do bring them in on Saturdays because they get Friday off essentially.
Yeah.
And they play Monday for us. So Friday and Sunday are kind of their days off. We hit more with them on Saturday. It made it fun though. We just called it Saturday Smackdown, and it was some live stuff that was fun for the JV that we would never do with the varsity, but it was something that they kind of needed. We needed to bring back a little bit. So you've got to figure out what fits in your system, whether you're two platoon or not. I mean, there's just so many variables to it. But I think if you look at everything from a performance lens, and I think the way to sell it to your players and your coaches is, does what we're doing here in this scenario improve our performance on Friday? Is this helping us to be better for Friday? Or are we doing it to fill time? Are we doing it because we've always done it? Are we doing it for the look of it? All those things. And so the biggest thing that Tony Holler helped me look through the lens of, practice should be about performance, not about hard work. Not saying that you don't work hard in practice, but if your whole goal is to do a bunch of hard things throughout practice, then you're really not looking at it through a performance lens, right? Being disciplined, doing things, executing, finishing to the whistle is hard work, but that's performance, right? Running gassers, running stations, being on the move constantly, all that stuff is hard work, not through a performance lens. So you got to kind of, and I think one of the lacrosse guys, maybe Jamie Monroe, maybe that Tony worked with was like, quit saying don't work hard. Just say you're redefining what hard work is. And that's probably a better way to say it, right? You're redefining hard work, or looking at it through a different lens, instead of the old school thought that as long as we do enough hard, tough things, our guys will be tough and win in the fourth quarter. And really the opposite's true. And then you start down that spiral of, okay, we did all these things this week, we lost. We're doubling down next week. We need to do more conditioning, we need to do more hitting in practice. And then you do that where you just get on this losing streak and guys are getting hurt and you're down this revolving door of the same old thing. Next thing you know, you got more starters standing behind you than out there playing. It's all the kids' fault. Kids are soft these days, and you go down this whole rabbit hole without looking in the mirror and saying, maybe it's what we're doing in practice. And if we cut out the BS, we focus on performance, we get our kids out at a good time, we'll have them for Friday and have a better chance to be successful.
Well, I'm glad you said that because we did that. I even fell back a couple of times. I found myself doing it, like going back to old school, like you're doing it. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, wait. Because like I said, the O-line group, like if it's a sprint day, we might go hit the sled. But then I make sure if we do, because I think like, hey, we're not firing off low. We're not doing this. We're going to go hit the sled. And I try to make it realistic. We're only going to hit it for like 6 to 8 seconds. And then we move on to the next group. But then I found myself doing that. Like, okay, then the next thing I do should probably be a walkthrough thing. Like, hey, let's get our mind right. Take your helmet off sometimes. Hey, this is how we block this. This is how they're going to look. And I always try to make sure that we're going to hit the sled. Then we're going to go down there and do double teams and hit and do this. It's like, why am I doing that over and over? Let's make it where, especially people don't think, if you're a small school or us, where we're going to do offense the first half hour, 40 minutes, defense the next. Well, we're doing inside run, we're doing team, then we got to do inside run again and do team, and you're constantly hitting. Like, that's a lot. Then you're hitting an individual, you're hitting in this, and then you're trying to move like this. Like, what does that do? Then by the time we get to Friday and they're like, oh, my shoulder hurts or this hurts. Like, those are things that we're tweaking through right now in this offseason. When I sit down in the spring, I'm going to present all that and say, guys, we have to rethink of how we do this. If we want to be different than everybody else in the conference and do this is what we need to do.
Right. And I think it depends on how experienced your group is. And then as the season goes on and people get comfortable with a practice plan, and if you did inside run offense, inside run defense, and all this stuff, and it's like, how much inside run do I need to do in week 8? I would assume, from a physical standpoint where you're at. And now it's more about the scheme. That's why we go against hand shields a lot, right? It's like, okay, maybe they're in a different front or their front's going to move around. We don't need to see like a double team pancake into the ground. Like, we understand where we're at in that standpoint, but we need to make sure when this guy's in a 4-eye versus, a 7 or whatever, 5, whatever the scenario is, that we understand who's got who and that type of stuff. And so we'll do inside run against hand shields or trap bags or whatever as the year goes on. Even like this year, even on our quote unquote hitting day, even if we were in full pads at different times, as the season went on, we really limited all the hitting and we saved it for Friday. And because our guys had proved that they were, it's essentially a checklist. Once guys get good at a drill or a concept, let's move on to the next thing. Let's add a complexity to it. Or we can say, we're good enough at that. Let's just, whatever it is. Now it's more game plan focused, or we move on to the next skill. And that's the Andy Ryland thing, where everyday skills, not everyday drills. Like, I used to be and I think that's, talk about a 6:30 practice or 3-hour practice. A lot of that is because a coach has this 20-minute everyday period where the drills that they started on August 9th, they're still doing on November 9th. And it's like, man, that drill was either way too hard on August 9th, or it's not doing anything on November 9th other than wasting time and getting your guys tired. So either add complexity to it throughout the year, a speed component, a contact component, a read component. And then once it's like, okay, we are good at a downhill linebacker read, near foot, near shoulder, outside arm free. Like, we're good at that. We don't have to work on that anymore. All right. Now let's work on what happens when it's zone. Like, so we're really good at gap, man. When we see the puller, that's great. But when outside zone, we're having trouble fitting into outside zone. Like, where do we fit and the technique? Let's focus on that. We're good. We didn't got to go back to an everyday drill of a downhill gap counter scheme like we've been really good at. And then you can just progress. The next thing you know, it's like, all right, boom, let's do game plan stuff. And then let's get the hell out of here in an hour and a half, hour and 15, hour and 20, whatever the scenario is, or spend some more time on special teams or do something fun. You can progress that throughout the year.
Or one thing I'm trying to do myself, but trying to like talk about as a whole is, why can't we split things up? So like on Tuesday, why can't that be for defense? Like, hey, this team is really good at power counter. So maybe Tuesday, that's what you're looking at. Then their secondary plays are outside zone, inside zone. So then Wednesday, instead of working on everything again, just split it. So now we're doing even less, because it used to be, we got to get everything done. Why can't it be Tuesday, work on this, Wednesday, work on this, Thursday's your walk through it all, literally walking, then you're good. like that's another thing I'm trying to get done is even when we're practicing our own stuff, like why can't Tuesday be our power read day or whatever? Why can't Wednesday be inside zone this? And that's all we're working on ourselves. So the kids aren't thinking, we're really just tuned in on this. Thursday walk through it all. Now we're not just pounding, like we got to run all of our 10 run plays in one day and work on everything. No, like why can't we split it up? Let the kids think, be relaxed. They're healthy. And then by the time we get to Thursday, it's all put together. And then Friday, now you got to go.
Right. Yep.
Well, Coach, I know I've kept you for a long time. You're also an athletic director, I think, too. You've got a lot going on.
First year, yeah, that was a different experience, hosting, having to be in charge of the playoff games, and then we hosted the volleyball regional during the football playoffs this year. So, yeah, a lot of that, but very thankful that our high school principal, Zach Houston, was also a coach at the Illini West Dynasty. He's got girls in all the girls programs. His boy plays football. So he was a huge help in terms of all that. Our junior high principal is actually our junior high football coach. And he helps us on Friday nights. So I've got some good administrators that helped out a lot or have helped out a lot. So that's been really nice to make things work. So, but yeah, it was a learning curve. I miss the everyday in the athletic PE, but I'm still going in there when I can and helping with the programming and that type of stuff. So keeps me in it.
Yeah. So you're the boss man now. So everybody answers to you now.
Oh, I guess. I don't know about that. Just trying not to screw it up.
Oh no, you're going to be fine. You're just in charge of all sports now instead of just one. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on here on this Monday on your Christmas break. I think that's it. Everybody knows your stuff. I'll plug it in at the bottom. You got a lot of sprint-based football stuff. You're on other podcasts. Like I said, you're an OG when it comes to sprint-based football, so everybody knows. But I appreciate you.
All righty. Thank you for having me on.